Hi guys, and welcome back to part 2 of troubleshooting Inter-VLAN routing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up where we left off in part 1 and I'm going to try to solve each and every one of the issues we identified in part 1. So I'm going to dive straight into, guys. As you can see, I've got the router 1. So again, I've just literally popped up router 1. Let's bring that to the top of the screen and let's bring that over to give me a bit more space. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into router 1 and I'm going to have a look at that show run again. So again, from our part 1, we identified a number of problems. In particular, we saw that this was the wrong tag for our VLAN 10, and we saw this was the wrong tag for our VLAN 30. They were mixed up, weren't they? And also I can see this was administratively shut down. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm actually going to take out that configuration first. So I'm going to go conf-t, I'm going to go into interface gigabit 0/1.10, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the configuration. So I'm going to basically take out the encapsulation used. So I'm going to say no, I'm going to say encapsulation, and I'm going to say .1q30. Okay, so I'm going to take it out of there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into interface gigabit 0/ and let's double check 0/1, isn't that right? .30. Just make sure we weren't going into the wrong gigabit interface. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to say no encapsulation, and I'm going to say this time .1q10. So now what I can see, if I go back into my show run, guys, what I should be able to see is there now, it's basically gone. Now doing that, guys, you'll also notice something. Once I removed that basically configuration, so those .1q identifiers, it also removed the IP addresses. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to basically add the IP addresses again and do a no shutdown on this particular on gigabit 0/1.10 subinterface. So let's do that now. Now I have all of the details here, so that's no problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to conf-t. Let's start off with interface gigabit 0/1.10. Let's go encapsulation .1q, and this time we're going to say 10. Also, we're going to say IP address 172, and make sure we get the IP addresses correct because then it won't work. I'm going to go 17.10.1, so this is going to be the default gateway of our friend here, PC1, and I'm going to make sure that I give the correct subnet mask. In this case, we're using a /24 mask, and I'm going to make sure I bring this interface up because remember, this was already turned off. So now we're going to do a no shut. So next I'm going to go into our interface gigabit 0/1.30, and I'm going to put in my encapsulation .1q. I'm going to say 30, and I'm going to put in an IP address. So IP address 172.17.30.1. I'm going to say 255.255.255.0. And once I do that, I'm going to hit no shutdown anyway on this also. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go exit, and do a show run to see my status now, guys. So in here now I can see this looks a lot better. I can see my tag is correctly lining up with my VLAN. So that looks much, much better. Also, I can do a show IP interface brief to make sure that these interfaces now are up. So I can see now, guys, look, they're in an up state. So that's a good sign. So what was my next issue? My next issue was, well, we had a couple of other issues, didn't we? We had an issue, for example, in our PC over, was it in VLAN, this guy? We had a different IP address being used. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I go to desktop, IP configuration, and just so that you know, guys, at this stage, now again, I don't tend to worry about the score, but what you'll see is we've already, this should be clocking upwards. So in fact, by doing those two changes here, we can see our completion score is 50% as it stands. If I now go and configure, I know now the default gateway for our VLAN 30 machines is 30.1. If I change this to 30.1, we should see this improve from 50. It should go even further. If I click away now, you can see that it's jumped us up to 25. So in other words, another further 25 up to 75%. So we're doing very well at the moment. We're into our distinction criteria, but we're not happy with 75%. We want the full 100. We want this situation to work. At the moment, this isn't going to work. So if I go back to, for example, my real-time mode, and what we'll see, guys, is if I just fast forward the clock there to see, it looks as though everything's working. But if I try to ping between PC1 and PC30, what we're going to see is failures. And I'll keep doing this. Do it a couple of times. But again, it's going to continue to fail. Why is it continuing to fail? Well, what we're going to see is that at this moment in time, switch number 1, we identified in part 1, it had a problem, didn't it? It wasn't a trunk link. So if you remember up here, guys, let's go up here and let's bring this across so that we can see it. Let's place this on top and let's have a look at this. So if I go show VLAN, I can see that basically gigabit 0/1 is it's being treated as an access port. We don't want that. We need to basically say, again, if I go to look at my trunk ports, there's going to be nothing here. Well, again, there's going to be nothing on gigabit 0/1. So we can see nothing there. So what we want to do is we want to go conft and we want to say interface gigabit 0/1. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're able to carry our different VLAN traffic. So again, at the moment, if we wanted to prove this, guys, have a look at this. When I'm trying to send traffic, as you can see, I've got tests running here. When I'm running, if I go to next, what we're going to be seeing is it's just not going to work. So as I go here, over here, look at the way they're disappearing. The only traffic that's working over this link at the moment is STP. But my regular traffic, ARP, my ICMPs aren't, they're failing. And you can see here, it's basically trying and trying and trying. But until this is a trunk link, it's not going to work. So what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to go back to real-time mode. I'm going to go switch port, mode, trunk. And I'll also keep an eye on my percentage score when I hit the enter. So once I do that, guys, we can see we've got 100% completion. So just to round up, what have we done while this spanning tree is going through the phases? What's happened? We basically identified a number of issues. The first issue we saw was the tagging. VLAN tagging was incorrect. We then identified that one of the sub-interfaces was shut down. We then found that the VLAN, this PC3, was pointing to the wrong default gateway. And then finally, we found that this interface, gigabit 0/1, wasn't a trunk port. So now when I go back to privilege mode and go show VLAN, it shouldn't be in the list. Look, gigabit 0/1 is no longer there. Where is gigabit 0/1? It's actually in show interface trunk. It's now a trunk port. And you can see, look, it's using encapsulation .1Q and its status of trunking, and it's in this on mode. And we're able to transport our VLANs across this trunk link. Now if we do a verification, if we do a simulation, guys, so again, now what we can do is we can run a test. So here's our ARP message going to the router. We might need to get an ARP response, but what we should see now is our ICMP message. And if I just close these windows just for a moment, we should see, even though we're at 100%, this should obviously work. So here's our ICMP message here. If I continue to click, what's going to happen, guys, is we may need to ARP. So again, the first ICMP message may not make it because the ARP message needs to go back. So the router needs to learn the layer 2 information. But if I continue, so we've got a failure there, we could wait and wait and wait. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another quick ping. So now, if I do a quick ping between VLAN 10 and VLAN 30, now let's give it a test. Off it goes up to our router. Our router, what does it do? It now basically routes the traffic from one VLAN to the other, goes back up to the router, and finally, guys, we have a successful ping message. So there we can see, guys, we've just troubleshooted and fixed the issues that we were having. So hopefully that helps, guys. Thanks for joining me today, and see you soon.